Hey, welcome to another battle report. This time we have Warriors of the Dark Gods facing off against Ogre Khans. Because a friend of mine wanted to see Hellmaw in action and see how it influences the game. I'm playing the Warriors of the Dark Gods. It's an army that is still being painted, so I'm sorry if there's still some unpainted models in there, which is quite a bit in the army. Now to the army list, I have a Doomlord and a Barbarian Chief. As you can see, I go very light on magic here, because I think that the wizard, you have to run it on probably a disc or something. I don't have the model. I'm just planning on keeping my Warriors of the Dark Gods army quite small. You can buy a lot of different things if you really delve deep into the Warriors of the Dark Gods. So for my magic, I'm just going for a Crown of the Wizard King on the Barbarian Chief and 2 Icons of the Infinite in the army and a Marauding Giant with the Wandering Familiar. And we will see how this turns out in the battle itself. I have a couple of sturdy combat blocks, not really sturdy for Warriors of the Dark Gods, kind of standards, but for a general army they are quite sturdy, like the 20 warriors with the great weapons with the zealot standard, the 15 warriors with halberds. If they charge, then they also put on a lot of hurt, and obviously the warrior knights can dish out quite some damage together with the Doomlord and the Forsworn, but they're really just a brick basically. I have some chimeras for chaff this time. I played with 2 units of dogs in some previous games, but I wanted to try the chimeras out a bit more. Then we go to the Ogre Khan list. This is just a list of a friend of mine, and it's also based just on the collection of models he has. And he's more of a fan of painting and modeling and building the army rather than going for the strongest list in every possible way. I'm not an ogre player myself, so I don't really recognize mistakes in army lists, as some people would call them. Well, just for Ogre Khans specifically. But this is what he's running. So he has a Wizard Master, and that's his magic. It's also, well, it's obviously more than my magic, but it's not over the top either. And it looks like a very balanced ogre list really. He has a combat block of tribesmen, in which usually the Khans go. He has some nice Tusker cavalry and a rock Auroch, which is it all hits quite hard still in combat, and he has some shooting to back it up. Then we go to the magic selection. So as I have the Crown of the Wizard King, I have to roll for his spell. And I ended up with having Druidism on my Barbarian Chief. I think it's an interesting choice because giving resilience, giving a fortitude save to any of my blocks is quite nice, because every wound that I am able to preserve in my games is going to be worth it. The Giant chose Glory of Gold as his spell, and then we have twice the Hereditary Hellfire as bound spells on the Icons of the Infinite. My opponent has Shamanism. He took the Hereditary Children of Umi spell, and then he took Awaken the Beast, Savage Fury and Break the Spirit. Then for the battle itself, we played Hold the Center as objective, and we had Encircle as deployment type. I believe I had to choose table sides, and I went for the bottom side because the hill in the middle is a little bit more towards his side, and he has more shooting than I have, obviously, because, well, I'm playing Warriors of the Dark God, and I thought that this would I could cover my approach a little bit more with the hill over there and just go from the hill to the ruins into his backfield. Which is way more open now on his side of the table than with the building. And normally I would say that having a building in your deployment zone is kind of nasty, as it limits the deployment you can obviously make, because you have less space, so there's also going to be more space between your units if you decide to deploy on either side of the building. and this will limit the interactions between your units, so counter charges and stuff like that. But in this case I thought I could be the aggressive one, as we played anyway hold the center, and yeah, he can also be aggressive, but this ogre army is not that aggressive. He just has the Tusker cavalry and the big block of ogres, and the Stonehorn obviously. If they together were to charge into one of my units, then this unit would just get slaughtered obviously. But as long as I don't go over the hill, I also don't have to worry about it. And yeah, with hold the center, normally ogres can just go into the center and threaten from there, and yeah, just go there and take the objective. But with the hill in the middle, if he goes onto the hill, then I can see him, and well, he can't really charge over the hill if he can't see me, obviously. So yeah, I think I made the right decision there to take the bottom side. As you can see, we are deploying right now. The first drop I did was the big Forsworn block. They have the Wasteland Storage, and they transformed the field that was on the bottom right into ruins. So the ruins you see on the bottom right were actually, when we started, just a field, and I used my standard to turn it into ruins, because the Forsworn have Strider ruins with the banner. There were already ruins on the opposite side of the table there, so I thought it would make for a very, very nice walkway for them, to limit the amount of shooting they would endure, because of the hard cover that it provides. Thus we are going through deployment. I already knew that I was going to put the Forsworn there, and I thought that my opponent would be able to guess that they were going to go there. So my first drop was actually the Forsworn. And now we're just dropping unit by unit and not really giving a lot of information to each other yet. So I continued my Forsworn deployment by the Barbarian Horseman with the banner in the middle, with a Chimera which is very mobile. And later on I had to start putting down some more important units like the Warrior Knights on the left. I actually also, I'm just making obvious choices here in my mind, because, well, there's the water in the middle left of the field. The knights had to go there somewhere, and if they were going to go behind the giant and the Chimera, then it would get clogged up there. And, well, I'm also trying to counter his deployment a little bit. So, for example, yes, the Tusker cavalry, they have movement 6 of them on right. And my cavalry has movement 8 on the charge. So now we are at the end of the deployment. As you can see, we dropped units just one by one nearly all the time. And then only at the end my opponent decided to drop all, I believe. There's no real gain for either of us, in my opinion, to having the first turn. And especially with the scenario hold the center, it's advantageous to be the second one to go, actually, because you can counter the movement of your opponent. Like if he has 1 scoring unit on the objective, you can counter it with 2 scoring units, as you please, basically. And yeah, if you have the initiative, you have to already anticipate how many scoring units your opponent is going to bring, and well, able to bring and is going to bring to the center of the table. So in this case, I actually thought it was advantageous to go second. Yes, for the deployment, you can yeah, some things I'll just point out. I think the Tusker cavalry are deployed in a very good way, because they can just zone the entire table on the left. Which I am trying to counter with my knights, but I'm very doubtful about their performance. And then the bombardiers in the middle of the table, they could have gone on the left where the tribesmen are, but yeah, maybe he would have run into leadership issues there. But then, yeah, maybe the tribesmen with the cannon BSB should have been at the position where now the Stonehorn and the Kin-Eater are. But on the other hand, Bombardier, I believe at the time we were deploying, then the field was still quite open, and he didn't know where my army was going to go anyway. So deploying the Bombardiers in the central position was also quite good at that time, because they can still go everywhere. I could still have opted to deploy all of my army on the right, basically, and just ignore those Bombardiers if they were on the left flank, which I think I would have done if they had ended up there very quickly. But I think he could have managed to await my deployments by just deploying his Sabertask and his other Sabertask and the Kin-Eater and everything else. And then it could have been a little bit better to him, maybe. I realize now that I haven't told you yet where the ominous gateway of the Hellmaw is put. As you can see, there's a small marble in front of the Tusker cavalry, and that is the marker for the Hellmaw that I put down just after we chose stable sites. As you can see, he's just going to move up his army a bit, and in terms of matchups that we have coming from the deployment on the field, I'm not too afraid of what is going to happen, because in the bottom left I have my great weapon warriors, which I would imagine can do quite a lot of, can inflict quite some pain on his infantry or on the Tusker cavalry. But I also have some chaffing pieces, obviously, on the left with the Barbarian Horsemen and also the Chimera, which is, these two blocks are his main battle line blocks. And yeah, the Stonehorn is going to be a problem for me, because it's toughness 6. It's a tough guy. It's quite funny to see that he's doing a mix of offensive and defensive, keeping his lead belchers or his bombardiers just at the back of his army, and moving up the left flank quite confidently. And I would say that this is maybe a little bit too confident. Then we go on to magic and shooting. Nothing really happens other than him putting Break the Spirit on my Forsworn. Then we go to my turn, and I actually realized that he moved up quite carelessly. And as you can see here, I can charge in the Warrior Knights in his Tusker cavalry. My reasoning for this was that I would just inflict a couple of wounds and make the unit smaller, so that it would not be able to charge as hard as it is when it has all of its models. And yeah, the rest just carefully moves up. I used the Barbarian Horseman here to chaff up his tribesmen. I don't know if this was necessary. I thought it was, because I was more afraid of losing the Chimera than I was of sacrificing the Barbarian Horseman in this way. And also it prevents his ogres from charging my Barbarian Chief, which, if he was going to charge them, I could have fled, because it's a Barbarian Chief and not a Warrior Chariot, which is why also one of the reasons why I put a Barbarian Chief on there, even though he has 1 AP less on his profile. So in hindsight, I still think it was a good idea to chaff up his ogres there. And on the right side of the board, I just move up carefully. I struggle a little bit with the fact that the Barbarian Horsemen are not light troops, and I don't have any space to go with them. I find, because I don't want to go on a hill, because my opponent will just not charge them and shoot them to pieces with his bombardiers, is my reasoning. And also, if I put them somewhere on the left, then they might be charged by the Stonehorn, and I have to flee behind the building. I will lose a couple, and I might not even rally. Yeah, but now they're just in the middle of my line and then preventing the warriors from going anywhere. Yeah, and the giant is just hiding behind the hill. The chimera is out of range of his whole army. And then we go to magic. My giant is in range of my warrior knights to cast Glory of Gold on them, so they have a reroll to wound. And that's the only spell I really cared about now. Just to make sure that I inflict as many wounds as I can on this unit, because yeah, I got in and now I have to seal the deal in terms of just dealing wounds as much as I can. And I believe now we go to combat. Yeah, we're rolling the dice for the combat, and as you can see, I inflict quite a couple of wounds there. This is 5 wounds from the riders, I believe, and then I roll for the horses, and the horses kick in yet another wound. So yeah, here the second model is removed. So I inflicted a total of 6 wounds, which was not what I was expecting, really. I guess Glory of Gold also, yeah, it also helps. And then he strikes back. He's going to strike back with a lot of attacks, because still just 2 guys of this, it amounts to a total of, if I'm right, 16 attacks or so for the beasties, for the riders, something like that. Which is a big amount of attacks for these kind of models. But they're all AP1 and AP2. And I have the luck of having a 1+ armor save, so that becomes a 2+ armor save against the strength 4 hits and a 3+ against the strength 5 hits. But I only have 5 wounds, of course, so this is a very dice dependent procedure here. But I managed to just break him. He deals 1 wound to me, and I obviously chase him because I am very happy that I can get rid of this unit in this way and charge him next turn if he is going to rally. So that went way better than I had expected, because I had expected to just inflict 3 wounds, then lose 3 guys in the process, have it be a -1 for him, and yeah, then just be stuck there and get smacked down. But this is obviously way better for me. Just breaking through his line, only losing 1 guy in the process. Yeah, now we are into his turn. My chimera in my combat didn't do a wound on him, and instead took a wound, but he's decided to stick. And now he's just looking at the different angles he can make on me. And yeah, he just charged in the Barbarian Horseman. The Barbarian Horseman I like to stay there, because otherwise his ogres can redirect into the chariot. And that was the one thing that I wanted to prevent, so they have to stick. Whilst obviously they are going to die there. And small notice, in my magic phase I put down a marker for the Hellmaw just beside the Forsworn, to the place where he just moved up his dog, his saber tusk. So he tried to prevent me from going into the portal with anything and popping out near the other marker. And then he put his Kin Eater facing the marker so that he could charge me with an unbreakable model and hold me in place. Yeah, I don't really mind him doing that. Like, this is the type of impact that a Hellmaw already has on the game in turn 2, and it's, yeah, it is rightfully so that he is taking into account that I can use the token. But yeah, sacrificing a saber tusk for a turn 2 movement, well, it might be worth it to do. But I'm not sure if I would have done it myself, because you're losing your saber tusk, obviously. Yeah, then we go to shooting. So he shoots with his bombardiers. I'm still struggling with the names sometimes. I also played 8th edition, 7th edition, 6th edition Warhammer, and these names, they just stick in your mind. So excuse me if I sometimes use the wrong names for the bombardiers, for example. Yeah, so for combat, he completely obliterates my my barbarian horseman, and he trundles over the field, and yeah, he's in front of my warriors now, so I guess I have to take the bait. He also kills the Chimera with the bruisers on the left, which was a little bit unlucky on my side, but well, shit happens. And then it's my turn. I go to charges. So first charge is the Barbarian Chief into the bruisers. Second charge is the Great Weapon Infantry into his ogres. Third charge are the Knights into the Tusker Cavalry. I also declared a Giant against his ogre block. It needed something like a 9 or a 10. But I wanted actually to distract his Stonehorn for a turn. Like I don't mind sacrificing my Giant to keep this Stonehorn in check for one turn. And you can also see the solution that I had for the token on the right for my Hellmaw, to utilize my Hellmaw, I think. So I charged the dog with the halberdier infantry, and yeah, look at this Chimera. The movement, 20-inch march move is just so long. It's they can move wherever you want. It's amazing. Yeah, I was talking about the Hellmaw marker. So he decided to flee with this dog, and I don't know if it was the right call, because I have a reroll on my charge of the one of my charge roll. And I have Swift Stride, and I have a higher movement, so the chance that I'll catch up with the dog, with the warriors, is quite big. And, well, anyway, if he would have stayed there, I'm allowed... No, I don't think I could have used the marker if he had stayed there, so I think he should have stayed where he was with the dog, and just make me just be congested with my own army. But like this, I can just fully push up the Forsworn on the right and be in the ruins. So I get a hard cover bonus, and the chariot that was in the ruins on the right can just use its advance move to zap through the portal to the other side. Then we go into combat, because magic doesn't really do anything, I believe. In combat, the warrior knights clean up the rest of the Tusker Cav, for which I was very, very grateful, and just the banner survives, so I still have the icon of the Inferno there. The Barbarian Chief in combat does some wounds on the bruisers, but the bruisers just stay and they do some wounds back on the Barbarian Chief, so that seems a bit like a draw. And well, next round I'm not gonna have the impact hits that I had. And then the last combat we have is the combat with the tribesman. He goes first, and he didn't charge, so he doesn't get the impact hits, which is, in my view, very important. But he, in his turn, he thought he had to overrun, because otherwise my Barbarian Chief would have charged into his unit together with the warriors, and maybe the warriors would not have made it. But I would have gone in with the Barbarian Chief with the chances of him sticking in combat, being able to move up the Great Weapon Warriors and charge his block in the next turn. Yeah, so he kills 8 warriors, and I strike back and I kill like 4 entire ogres, which is 12 wounds. I win combat in this way, and I managed to actually run him down on turn 2, my turn 2. Yeah, so this was quite detrimental for him, obviously, because he lost his general, he lost his BSB, he lost his big scoring block. So objective is going to be a tough one for him. and also this round I managed to get another point for the objective because my warrior is on the hill. So it's going to be an uphill battle for him. And then, yeah, my units are still close to their initial combat potential. Whilst his combat units are, the big tribesman block is gone, the Tusker cavalry is gone, and the only thing I have suffered so far is, that has a high impact on the game, is the warrior knights that lost 4 of the models. Yeah, now it's going to be a game of cat and mouse. The battle lines have been properly ripped up, and I get to put down markers where I can just walk in and teleport to different directions. And he has to cope with that, basically, and with a forsworn block that's just gonna move forward and try to kill everything in the way. Also, my warriors with halberds are now on a hill, so as they have envy, they are going to have swift stride. They reroll their ones on the charge rolls, and as they are on the hill, they reroll the charge roll if I'm not successful. So the chances of me going into the lead belchers, there we go again, the bombardiers, are quite high. He tries to shoot some of them off. He manages to shoot off 5 of them in one go. So that was, yeah, that hurt. And then the volley gun of he used the cannon as a volley gun, because the Forsworn were in hard cover, and he manages to kill another one, I believe. Anyway, we go to the combat with the Stonehorn, as he just kills the giant, and it's gone. Well, it is the outcome that I had expected, and I don't regret the choice, because otherwise he could have, for example, put the Stonehorn just in front of my halberd infantry. And to be honest, I know that the Stonehorn is way more effective when it's charging, but yeah, just against the halberd infantry, I don't know who's gonna win, because I don't have the Zealot's banner on this unit, so I would get 12 attacks, and I would, he has a wide frontage, so I would get 15 attacks, I guess. I hit him on 3s, wound him on 5, so that's like 3 wounds. I think he would just outgrind me, actually. So sacrificing a giant to distract the Stonehorn was a good idea, I think. Well, then we go over to my turn. Everything flies into everything, basically. So the Great Weapon Warriors decide to help my Barbarian Chief, because he has been struggling with the bruises for some reason. And then, the chariot just saps away again in the portal and goes back to the close to the original place on the hill, so he has a reroll on his charge range. And the Forsworn go into the Gnoblars. The warriors make it into the lead belches without suffering any losses on the stand and shoot roll. And the Chimera with movement, with march movement of 20, just goes where it wants to be. And I still have the Icons of the Infinite, so the one warrior knight on the top left, he's just in the view of the camera, and the Barbarian Horseman all the way on the top right. So in the end, I'm quite happy with the magic setup as I have it, because the Icons of the Infinite can really draw out the magic dice of your opponent, and then I either get the spell of the Giant or I get the #1 spell of the Barbarian Chief. So with minimal points invested, I still get some revenue out of it. You can see that I put down a token for the Hellmaw next to the Great Weapon Warriors, and this is the Stonehorn is ready to charge my Great Weapon Warriors, and I think the impacts will hurt a lot, because I will strike at agility 0 or 1 because it's great weapons. So he gets to do all of his attacks. I only have 12 guys, toughness 4. Eek. Anyway, the Forsworn also managed to clear the Gnoblas, and they managed to make the overrun into the Thunder Cannon. And then we get to see what warriors with halberds do to ogres when they charge with just 10 guys. So I removed 3 entire models and I put a couple of wounds on last ogre. Because of the reroll 1s to hit, 3s to hit normally, and 3s to wound. Yeah, it was well. It went very well. He manages to kill 3 of me. I auto break him, and his magic is also gone from the game. Yeah, so we're clearing up the field quite well as Warriors of the Dark God. And objective-wise, he lost all of his scoring units by now. So he still has 1 in the ruins. So here he does 3 charges. He fails, luckily for me, to charge with the Stonehorn, and the Bruisers they declared a charge against the Chariot on the hill. They also fail it. But these were long charges. He needed like 11s and 10s with the Bruisers, I believe. But the Kinito makes it in the Warriors. And now, yeah, with no magic or anything, I believe we directly go into combat. And the Kinito gets removed by the Great Weapon Warriors. They're 3 white, so they have 12 attacks at him, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. Yeah, they managed to clear it quite efficiently. And yeah, then we do the combat with the Forsworn and the Doomlord. I might have taken a wound there, but I managed to break the Thunder Cannon and reform, or chase him. And then it's for my turn 4, yeah. So I declare the charge with both the Chimera and the Chariot into the Bruisers. Chimera takes a dangerous terrain and he takes a wound from it. The Warriors go into the portal and the Chariot goes into the other portal because they're both very afraid of the Stonehorn. And this, yeah, in the end game, this is really where the Hellmaw shines. I don't know how useful it is at this point. I think it's just to preserve a couple of points. Because, yeah, the game has already been won, obviously. But probably for those matchups where you're still struggling to decide who's going to be who's going to win the game, basically. It can be very influential, especially if you take some time about thinking how the battle will go according to you, obviously, and where you need a portal at what time. So, for example, I was seeing that the Stonehorn was going to be free from any other duties. So I didn't want to. I already had a portal on the right side. I didn't want to risk it with my warriors to be smacked down by the Stonehorn, and I was very lucky with the field charge on his side. But I was very happy that I put a portal down there for my warriors to escape and be able to flank him now in the last turn. So this is the last turn we play. I charge him in the flank and the rear and the front. And he gets to make a couple of attacks. Just for the sake of the battle, I move up the other units in case he was going to have another turn, because I would like to be really sure that I'm going to kill this Stonehorn and not suffer any ill effects. And I can see that I made a small mistake because the flank of my Halberd warriors is actually open to the Stonehorn at this moment. So that's a bit of a messy play. But I didn't expect me to not win this combat, as I anyway have a flank charge, I have a rear charge, I have a charge, so that's a combat res of 4. So even if he manages to kill all of my warriors, which hopefully would be a challenge, I would also have standard, so chances that I will break from combat with all of these blocks are very slim. But well, you always have to adjust for the worst possible scenario, because well, the dice can screw you over. Yeah, so in the end I do manage to kill the Stone Horton when we roll it out, and that is the game. So it's a very clear victory for the Warriors of the Dark Gods, with both the objective and well, a lot of points, whilst not having lost too many points themselves. Yeah, I think the game was already kind of decided at the start when I got the charge of the Warrior Knights onto the Tusker Cavalry. And I had just sufficient chaffing pieces to outmaneuver my opponent's big block and crash in with the warriors with the great weapons, which had not gotten any damage. But probably it was a tough matchup for my opponent, and I also told him in advance. But yeah, anyway, we wanted to play it out, and well, this is the result. Thank you for watching, and hopefully see you in the next battle report.